First Great Ninja War. The story begins in the era of the First Great Ninja War, a time when the shinobi world was defined by endless bloodshed and unstable alliances. At the center of this chaos stood Hashirama Senju, the first Hokage of Konohagakure. Hashirama was not merely a powerful ninja, he was universally acknowledged as the God of Shinobi. This title was not born from legend or exaggeration, but from overwhelming, undeniable strength that even his enemies were forced to respect. Yet, very few truly understood the full extent of Hashirama's power. His dream was not conquest, but unity. By founding Konoha, he sought to bring rival clans together and end the endless cycle of war that plagued the ninja world. To stabilize this fragile peace, Hashirama captured the tailed beasts scattered across the world and distributed them among the major villages. Officially, this was to create balance. In truth, that balance existed largely because the world feared Hashirama's divine strength. As long as he lived, no village dared to upset the order he created. Even so, jealousy and resentment followed him. Smaller nations, threatened by Konoha's rise, began to view Hashirama as a danger rather than a savior. One such village, the Hidden Waterfall, secretly plotted his assassination. Their leaders, driven by fear and envy, believed that Hashirama would one day hold the fate of all villages in his hands. Before any assassination attempt was launched, Hashirama personally gifted the seven tails to that village as a gesture of peace. Ironically, this only deepened their fear. Convinced that they were losing control of their own future, they assigned the mission to one of their most gifted shinobi, Kakuzu. Kakuzu was sent to assassinate Hashirama without any real understanding of what he was facing. The village leaders failed to grasp that even Madara Uchiha, the proud leader of the Uchiha clan, had once acknowledged Hashirama's superiority. Kakuzu rushed toward Konoha with confidence, but no preparation could bridge that gap in power. The details of the battle were never shown by Kishimoto, but the outcome speaks for itself. Kakuzu survived, but only barely. Escaping alive from a confrontation with the first Hokage was, in itself, an unthinkable feat. However, his village interpreted his return as cowardice. To cover up their own crime, sending an assassin after the first Hokage, they branded Kakuzu a failure and sentenced him to death. Betrayed by the very village he served, Kakuzu escaped imprisonment. In doing so, he stole forbidden techniques and slaughtered the village's leadership, tearing out their hearts and claiming them as his own. From that moment on, Kakuzu abandoned loyalty entirely. He became a bounty hunter, harvesting the hearts of elite shinobi to extend his life and build his own power. Eventually, his abilities caught the attention of Akatsuki, where he was recruited and placed in charge of finances. Later, during a battle with Kakashi, Kakuzu casually revealed that he had once fought the first Hokage. Though he failed completely, that single encounter elevated his name forever. After all, in the shinobi world, surviving a battle against Hashirama Senju was proof enough that Kakuzu was anything but ordinary. But before we dive in, my friends, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if this isn't your first time watching. And now, let's get right into it. The Kannabi Bridge Mission. The second major event is the Kannabi Bridge Mission, one of the most decisive battles of the Third Great Ninja War. This operation marked the point where the conflict between Konohagakure and Iwagakure escalated into its most brutal phase. Kannabi Bridge was a critical supply route for the Stone Village. If the bridge was destroyed, Iwagakure's frontline forces would be completely cut off, forcing them to retreat and effectively ending the war. The shinobi assigned to this mission were Minato Namikaze, along with his students, Kakashi Hatake, Rin Nohara, and Obito Uchiha. Minato's unit was tasked with sabotaging enemy reinforcements while also supporting Konoha's defensive lines across multiple battlefields. It was an overwhelming mission, even by wartime standards. Fortunately for Konoha, Minato possessed the Flying Thunder God technique, allowing him to move between battlefields in an instant. However, even with such speed, he could not be everywhere at once. Faced with this limitation, Minato made a critical decision. He would operate alone across the front lines, while Kakashi, Obito, and Rin would form a separate team responsible for destroying Kannabi Bridge. At the time, Kakashi had only just been promoted to Jonin and was far less experienced than the shinobi he would later become. Rin lacked real combat experience, and Obito had only recently awakened his basic Sharingan. On paper, the mission was far beyond what these three should have been asked to handle. Yet none of them hesitated. Disaster struck during the operation when Rin was captured by enemy shinobi. In the attempt to rescue her, Kakashi lost his left eye. Shortly after, Obito sacrificed himself to save both Kakashi and Rin, only to be crushed beneath falling rocks, his body split in half. Without intervention, Obito would have died there. Unknown to his teammates, Madara Uchiha intervened, saving Obito and setting him on a path that would later reshape the entire shinobi world. Meanwhile, Minato arrived just in time to eliminate the remaining enemy forces. Without his intervention, Kakashi would have certainly been killed. The bridge was ultimately destroyed, and the mission succeeded, but at an unbearable cost. For Kakashi, it was a mission far beyond his limits, undertaken when he was still a child soldier with little real battlefield experience. And from the ashes of this operation, one of the greatest threats in ninja history was born. The Kannabi Bridge mission did not just change the course of the war. It created Obito Uchiha, the man who would later become the shadow behind countless tragedies. The impossible infiltration of the Rain Village. The third mission was an S-rank intelligence operation, infiltrating the Amegakure to investigate the growing threat of the Otsutsuki. Although the hidden Rain Village was small, it had always been one of the most dangerous and unpredictable powers in the shinobi world. In many ways, it was the birthplace of disasters that would later shake the entire world. Amegakure had been isolated from the outside ever since the era of Hanzo of the Salamander. After power shifted to Pain, the public face of Nagato, that isolation became absolute. Pain sealed the village behind an advanced barrier system that no nation, not even the 5 great shinobi countries, could penetrate freely. Entry was only possible if the hidden rain allowed it. Otherwise, infiltration was nearly impossible, automatically elevating any attempt to an S-rank mission. Konoha understood this danger well. One rare exception occurred when Tsunade used the Chunin exams as a diplomatic pretext, sending Kakashi Hatake into Amegakure under the excuse of delivering invitations. While inside, Kakashi attempted to quietly gather intelligence. What shocked him was that no matter how carefully he concealed himself, he was eventually detected. The village's surveillance was absolute. With no safe way to proceed, Kakashi was forced to withdraw. This failure made one fact clear: conventional infiltration methods would never work in the Rain Village. That realization led directly to Jiraiya. From Konoha's perspective, only Jiraiya possessed the stealth expertise necessary to even attempt such a mission. His mastery of infiltration techniques and experience operating alone made him the only viable choice. Yet, even Jiraiya was detected the moment he entered Amegakure. The reason was terrifyingly simple. The rain itself was a sensor. Pain controlled the constant rainfall, using it to detect chakra disturbances across the entire village. Every raindrop acted as part of a massive sensory network. Any foreign presence triggered an immediate alert. Under Pain's rule, infiltrating the hidden rain without detection was essentially impossible. No disguise, no stealth technique, and no speed was enough. The village itself had become a living surveillance system. That is why Jiraiya's mission was never meant to be safe, or even survivable. It was a gamble taken out of necessity. And in the entire Naruto world, there may not be a single shinobi, no matter how powerful, who could truly enter Amegakure undetected once Pain had seized control. The shadow decisions of Konoha. The fourth mission was nothing less than the assassination of the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi. Few people realize that before his death, Hiruzen had already survived multiple assassination attempts. The final and successful one came during the Konoha Crush incident, when Orochimaru allied with the Sand Village to invade Konoha, an attack that ultimately cost Hiruzen his life. However, Orochimaru was not the only shadow moving against him. Within the village itself, there was another man who had long desired Hiruzen's death: Danzo Shimura. Danzo had always coveted the title of Hokage. After the invasion, as Konoha lay in ruins and the village began rebuilding, the Hokage's seat could not remain vacant. Yet the village faced a generational gap. Jiraiya was wandering the world. Tsunade had abandoned the village to drown in gambling debts, and Kakashi's generation was still too young to shoulder leadership. During the council meeting, Danzo attempted to nominate himself as Hokage. But Hiruzen intervened, choosing instead to temporarily resume the role until the next generation was ready. Years earlier, Hiruzen had already taken Danzo's place during the second Hokage's sacrifice test, forcing Danzo into the shadows. Now, history repeated itself. Hiruzen, ever merciful, chose not to punish Danzo for his ambition. He simply asked him to devote himself to the village. Danzo responded coldly, warning that such kindness would one day be Hiruzen's undoing. In his eyes, light could not exist without shadow, and Konoha needed darkness to survive. The extermination of the Uchiha clan. The Uchiha were Konoha's strongest clan, famed for the legendary Sharingan. To wipe out the entire clan in a single night was a task far beyond a normal S-rank mission. Even deploying large numbers of elite shinobi might have failed, or plunged Konoha into a prolonged civil war. The difficulty of this mission was on an entirely different level. Yet, Itachi Uchiha and Obito Uchiha succeeded. Timing played a role. The Uchiha were already too late to prevent disaster, but the decisive factor was trust. The clan never suspected Itachi, especially Fugaku Uchiha, the clan head and Itachi's father. Fugaku never imagined his own son would turn his blade against them. When the massacre began, Fugaku had already lost the will to fight. No matter how strong his resolve, he could not bring himself to raise his hand against his own child. At the same time, Obito's unique abilities caught the clan completely off guard, preventing any organized resistance. Had this mission been assigned to any other ninja, or even to another member of Akatsuki, it would have failed. Only Itachi and Obito, bound by blood, trust, and betrayal, could have carried out such an impossible task. The untouchable beasts. Capture of the 8 tails and 9 tails, a task that stood at the very peak of Akatsuki's ambitions and their failures. In the shinobi world, tailed beasts were feared like natural disasters. Most villages avoided them entirely, treating them as walking plagues rather than sources of power. But there were always those who saw something more, individuals and organizations who worshipped raw strength and believed the power of the Biju could be weaponized. The Akatsuki was built on that belief. To them, hunting tailed beasts wasn't madness, it was routine. For most Akatsuki pairs, capturing Biju was shockingly efficient. Many tailed beasts fell quickly once elite Akatsuki members entered the field. However, 2 targets broke that pattern completely: the 8 tails, Gyuki, and the 9 tails, Kurama. These were not just stronger than the others, they existed on an entirely different tier. To capture the 8 tails Jinchuriki, Obito Uchiha deployed Kisame Hoshigaki alongside Team Taka, led by Sasuke Uchiha. On paper, this force should have been overwhelming. In reality, it became a disaster. The fight against Killer Bee was brutal. Sasuke was pushed to the brink of death multiple times and survived only because his teammates repeatedly saved him. Suigetsu Hozuki was completely defeated, and the team was forced into retreat. In the end, they escaped with nothing but a fragment of the 8 tails chakra. Hardly a victory. This battle made one thing painfully clear. The 8 tails was not prey. Even the 3rd Raikage had only been able to subdue Gyuki with extreme difficulty. Compared to other Biju, the 8 tails was almost untouchable. The 9 tails was even worse. To capture Kurama, Akatsuki's leader Pain, the public face of Nagato was forced to act personally. This was not by choice. By that stage, many Akatsuki members were already dead, and the remaining ones simply lacked the power to confront the 9 tails Jinchuriki. Pain launched a direct assault on Konohagakure, bringing all 6 paths with him, along with his partner Konan. The result was catastrophic. Although Pain devastated the village, the 6 paths were systematically destroyed, and Nagato himself was pushed beyond his physical limits. Exhausted and drained, he was ultimately defeated by Naruto Uzumaki. While Pain and Konan managed to withdraw, Nagato's defeat proved a terrifying truth. Even Akatsuki's leader could not forcefully capture the 9 tails. This failure exposed just how powerful Kurama and his Jinchuriki truly were. With direct methods failing, Obito escalated the conflict to its final stage. He triggered the 4th Great Ninja War, forcing the 8 tails and 9 tails Jinchuriki into the open. Even then, Obito failed. Despite commanding armies, resurrected legends, and the 10 tails shell, he could not secure Gyuki and Kurama in their complete forms. It wasn't until Madara Uchiha returned that the impossible finally became achievable. Only Madara possessed the overwhelming force, experience, and authority to complete what Akatsuki had failed to do. Not all power can be taken by force. The 8 tails and 9 tails were not just the strongest Biju, They were the breaking point of Akatsuki's entire plan. Seal of the Gods. This mission stands above all others in Naruto Shippuden. The execution of the six-path sealing technique. This was not simply a battle, nor a standard S-rank mission. It was the absolute pinnacle of difficulty, a task so extreme that only chosen figures in history were even qualified to attempt it. To begin with, there was a non-negotiable requirement: six paths power. Without it, no shinobi, no matter how talented, had the right to even participate. Strength, experience, and intelligence meant nothing without this divine chakra. The second requirement was even more restrictive. The participants had to be the reincarnations of Indra Otsutsuki and Asura Otsutsuki. In other words, destiny itself had to choose you. Historically, this technique was first used by Hashirama Otsutsuki, the sage of six paths, and his brother, Hamura Otsutsuki. Together, they sealed the Ten Tails, and later imprisoned Kaguya Otsutsuki by sealing her body onto the moon itself. That feat required the combined use of yin-yang release, six paths chakra, and perfect synchronization between two divine inheritors. No individual, no matter how powerful, could have accomplished it alone. Fast forward to the modern era, and history repeated itself. The only two shinobi capable of replicating that seal were Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha, the reincarnations of Asura and Indra. Even then, their success was anything but guaranteed. They weren't simply fighting an enemy, they were confronting the origin of chakra itself, a being who existed beyond conventional life and death. Throughout their battles with Kaguya, Naruto and Sasuke came dangerously close to failure multiple times. They were outmatched in raw power, overwhelmed by dimensional manipulation, and repeatedly separated across hostile realities. On several occasions, defeat was only moments away. The closest brush with death came when both were nearly erased, saved only by the intervention of Obito Uchiha. Obito sacrificed himself to rescue Naruto from Kaguya's killing ash bones, ensuring the sealing attempt could even continue. Without that sacrifice, the mission would have ended in total failure. And even that wasn't enough. The final sealing moment itself required perfect timing and teamwork. If Sakura Haruno had not delivered the decisive strike that disrupted Kaguya's movement at the critical moment, Naruto and Sasuke would not have been able to complete the seal. That single punch was the opening they needed, the final variable that made success possible. This is what truly defines the six-path sealing mission. Even the so-called chosen ones, armed with godlike power and destiny on their side, could not succeed alone. Again and again, Naruto and Sasuke were forced to rely on their allies. Strategy, sacrifice, and cooperation mattered just as much as raw power. The myth of the lone savior shattered completely in this mission. When you strip away the legend and look at the reality, the difficulty becomes almost unimaginable. The participants had to possess six paths, chakra, be reincarnations of Indra and Asura, face an immortal, dimension-shifting god, survive, repeated near-death encounters, execute a seal that historically required two divine brothers, rely on flawless coordination and outside intervention. Any single failure would have meant extinction for the shinobi world. This was not just a mission. It was a convergence of fate, sacrifice, and teamwork on a cosmic scale. And that is why the six-path sealing technique stands as the hardest mission in Naruto Shippuden. Not because it was impossible, but because it was only barely possible, even for those chosen by destiny itself.